consider myself to be a lucky man because my wife makes the best chocolate chip cookies you ever tasted. Her peanut butter cookies are close behind, but those chocolate chips, and it's been like that for about over 45 years now. Well, the other day I got home, and there she was up to something in the kitchen. And after being there a couple of minutes, I hear, "You like raisins, right?" And I said, "Okay." And there were spoons and pans and mixing bowls, everything all over the kitchen counter. And about 2 hours later, she says, "Come here, taste this." And she shoves this warm cookie in my hand, and I took a bite out of it. And I looked and I said, "Okay." And she said, "Wait, let me make another batch." So sure enough, 25 minutes later, she says, "Come here, try this one." And I tasted it. Now, as I looked around, I saw all of this mixed up dough, and I'm thinking, well, that's all right. I could just bring them to work. They'll eat the cookies there. So I took a bite out of this cookie, and I said, "Okay." And she gave me that funny look, and she tasted it and said, "Oh, this is terrible." The next thing I knew, all of the cookies and all of the dough that she had made had hit the garbage. Well, that gave me enough courage to look at her and say, "Your cookies are so good. Why can't you just leave well enough alone?" We've all heard those expressions, right? If it isn't broke, don't fix it. Let sleeping dogs lie. Don't mess with the status quo. That's exactly what Jesus wanted to do. He wanted to mess with the status quo. See, this 12th chapter of Luke is all about preparing for the kingdom of God. But the Jewish people at that time didn't understand or didn't think they had to prepare for anything. They were the chosen people. And all of a sudden, this guy Jesus comes along and he's talking about blazing fires, disrupting peace, and dividing families and households. They were expecting a Messiah, the anointed one, a king, one who would conquer. But all they got is this guy that wants to steer the pot a little bit and make things change. How many of those Jewish people do you think wanted to go to Jesus and say, "Leave well enough alone. It's not broken"? Seeking the kingdom of God means that sometimes we have to put society on its head. Think about it. How many times a week are we confronted with a moral issue that we find a way to rationalize? Or how many times a week do we become indifferent about a social concern? Unless, of course, it deals with us specifically. How often have we had the opportunity, like Ebed in this first reading, to defy the king, to challenge the status quo? Because he knew it was wrong. He rescued Jeremiah from the muddy cistern because he knew it was wrong. That is the way that Jesus' definition of the kingdom of God. To confront indifference and moral failure. To take risks. Several years ago, Bishop Campbell, he's now retired from the Diocese of Santa Fe, said very simply once, if your relationship with Jesus is just you and him, something is wrong. Christianity is about action. It's about doing something. This flame that Jesus talks about is a purification, removing the impurities. The baptism that he speaks about is about new life. And the disruption to family is about change. See, in his way, Jesus too is saying that being prepared for the kingdom of God is about action. Being a Christian is about action. So, where, when, how have we failed to do that? How have we shunned away from our action as a good Christian? Well, let's face it, some of the basic Catholic stuff is real easy, of course. You know, abortion or the death penalty or even the immigration. But see, this is a question that I would rather ask you than ask myself. Where have we failed? How have we failed? And when we look at those more challenging issues, the poor, the imprisoned, the addicted, the abandoned and forgotten, what about them? Is that when that NIMBY disease comes into our lives, not in my backyard? I don't know. Let's face it, following our Christian faith the way we should is a challenge. In fact, it's hard to do. But like I said, the why not is a question that I would rather ask you than ask me. Every place that Jesus went, he faced that challenge. Every place that Jesus preached the good news, he faced that challenge. But he never gave up. He never gave up. And neither should we. Let's face it, whether it was the people back at the time of Jesus or us today, we're human. We have erred. But we must still continue to persevere. No matter how many mistakes that we have made, we must continue to change and to move forward. And it's not just for our good. It's for the good of all the people of this world. I'd like to share with you a quote from our former president, Jimmy Carter. It goes like this: I have one life and one chance to make it count for something. My faith demands that I do whatever I can, wherever I am, whenever I can, for as long as I can, with whatever I have, to try to make a difference. He clearly heard today's gospel.